Hey guys, Gaston with Rough Country. Today we're going to be installing our 3.5-inch M1R kit on this 2025 Toyota Tacoma. This is a fairly straightforward installation with no cutting or drilling. It's going to raise the truck up 3.5 inches, but it's also going to level it front to back to get rid of that rear high stance. It's going to allow us to run a larger tire, giving us more ground clearance off-road without sacrificing our on-road ride. Up front, we've got our M1R struts. Now these are struts that are specifically valved and spring rated for the Tacoma and this amount of lift. The M1R is a reservoir strut. It is also a monotube strut, which means that the oil and the gas are separated by a floating piston. What that's going to do is prevent cavitation and fading. Also, the reservoir is going to keep the fluid cool, further adding to the overall performance of the strut. You can also dial in your height on the M1R struts by relocating this C-clip underneath the spring seat up or down. Here we have our forged aluminum control arms, lighter and stronger than the factory. They also correct the ball joint angle for the lift and include a serviceable ball joint. This black dust cap looks great, but we're going to upgrade to the billet. Next up, we've got our differential relocation brackets. These are going to lower the differential to make sure that our geometry on our axles stay exactly where they need to be, further improving our ride and the overall performance of the kit. For the rear, we've got our lifted coil springs. We've got our track bar relocation bracket to make sure we keep that rear axle centered. We've got our extended bump stops for the rear. We've got our extended sway bar links for the rear. And of course, we've got our M1R reservoir shocks for the rear. And all of this is going to allow us to run a 35, 12, 50, 18 Nitto Ridge Grappler wrapped around a Rough Country 18 by 8.5 Series 84. That's a complete lift kit as well as the wheels and tires. Let's get them installed. All right, with our wheels and tires off, we can see what we're working with here. Underneath the front, we're going to be replacing this strut with our Rough Country lifted M1R strut. We're also going to be replacing this factory control arm, the stamped steel one, with the Rough Country forged aluminum. First thing we're going to do is remove our tie rod from the knuckle. We'll also remove our ABS bracket as well as our ABS sensor. We'll go ahead and remove our caliper and get it hanging up out of the way. Unbolt our sway bar link. We'll go ahead and unbolt our upper ball joint as well as our lower ball joint mount. That should, we can't forget the axle nut. We'll pop this dust cover off and go ahead and remove our axle nut. We'll remove the upper strut hardware as well as the lower strut hardware. Then we will loosen but not remove the lower control arm bolts that allow us to swing it down. Go ahead and remove that factory strut. We'll replace it with the M1 strut. We'll go ahead and remove our upper control arm and get it replaced. After we do that, we'll just reverse the process. We'll reinstall the knuckle, we'll make all of our factory connections, and we'll be good to go and ready to move on to the other side. We'll go ahead and remove this from the knuckle and put the nut back on it just so we keep up with it. We'll go ahead and get these ABS brackets removed. Remove the bracket and replace the bolt so we know where it goes. All right, with our strut out of the way, now we're ready to remove our factory upper control arm. Now this bolt runs all the way through the arm, connecting both sides. And if you try to extract it, you're gonna hit your charge pipe at the intercooler. There are two ways to get around this. One way would be to remove your inner wheel well liner, remove your bumper cover, remove the bumper cover support, unbolt the radiator and the intercooler, shift it out of the way, and pull the bolt out. The other way is to apply slight upward pressure to the bushing on the radiator support. That's gonna cause it to lift up just enough to get that bolt out of the way. Now on the ground, you can do this with a jack stand and a piece of pipe or even a large socket. I've got a pipe that I've made an apparatus out of. I've got it sitting on my transmission jack. Because I'm on the lift, I've also got the truck strapped to the lift, and I've got a jack stand at the rear of the truck, just for safety's sake. We're gonna apply pressure. You're gonna see this gap increase between this brace and this wheel well liner. That's all we need, just maybe a ½ inch to an inch of clearance. We'll unbolt the bolt, jack it up, pull the bolt out, and we'll be ready to install the rough country control arm. I'm gonna remove these panels just for extra clearance and we'll get going. All right, now watch this gap as I jack up on this bushing and create clearance to remove the bolt. That should be enough. And if my calculations are correct, this bolt should come all the way out. I got it. Now let's install our rough country forged aluminum control arm. I'm gonna go ahead and stage the bolt up here. That way I can put the arm in place. Be careful of your ABS lines. And get our bolt started. Slide it all the way through. And let's grab our attachment hardware. Let pressure off of our radiator support. Let that fall back down. Now we can install our M1R lifted strut. Now we're going to reinstall the factory knuckle. And now let's connect our upper control arm to the knuckle. Now I'm going to reassemble reverse of removal, and then we'll torque everything to spec. We're not going to reinstall our sway bar link just yet. We need it uninstalled so we can do the passenger side because the sway bar connects both sides. Axle nut, check. Everything has been reattached and torqued to spec on the driver's side, with the exception of the sway bar link. We're gonna wait until we fully assemble the passenger side, then we'll connect both and torque those down. I did go ahead and torque down the upper and lower control arms, but before I did that, I put weight on them, got them into their height that they'll be sitting with the full truck weight before I torque those down. That's very important. Now, I'll go ahead and knock out the passenger side. It is the same as the driver's side with the exception of we don't need to manipulate the radiator support to get that bolt out. If anything pops up over there that I think you need to know about, I'll come get you. Otherwise, I'm gonna knock that out and then we'll drop the diff. The passenger side went together just as I thought it would. No surprises at all. We've got it fully buttoned up, and we also went ahead and reinstalled our sway bar link bolts on both sides. Got everything torqued down. Now we're ready to install our differential relocation brackets. Let's get the truck up in the air to a working height and we'll get started on that. Our first step is going to be to mark where the drive shaft and the yoke for the differential meet so we can put it back in the same position. Once we do that, we'll go ahead, unbolt the drive shaft, get it tucked up out of the way. We're gonna unbolt the lower differential bolt here so we can roll the diff up and remove that bracket and replace it with our relocation bracket. Once we do that, we're gonna replace these front brackets, left and right, get all that situated, reinstall our drive shaft, and we'll be ready to move to the back. Now we're going to go ahead and unbolt the lower diff mount. We've got this mount unbolted from the cross member. Now we're going to unbolt the mount from the differential itself. We'll get this top one out of the way, then we'll roll the diff up and get the bottom one. Now we're going to roll that diff up where we can get to the lower bolt and replace that diff bracket. Now we're going to install the rough country rear diff bracket. All right, now we're gonna move to the front diff brackets, get those removed and replace those. Now the front of the kit is fully installed, and despite what you may have seen on social media, we're not done. We have to install the rear, so let's get going. Here's how the rear installation is gonna go. We're gonna unbolt our factory track bar. We're gonna unbolt our ABS brackets on both sides of the axle. We're gonna unbolt our soft brake lines from the frame. We're gonna completely remove the factory shocks, and we're gonna let that rear end drop down. Once we do that, we'll be able to remove the factory coils, then we'll grab the rough country lifted coils, put those in place, and kind of work backwards. We'll lift the axle back up, install the rough country shocks, we'll put our relocation bracket in for our track bar, we'll also put our relocation brackets in for our ABS lines, and then we'll reconnect the factory soft lines. Oh, also, we need to remove the factory drive shaft hoop so that when we drop the axle, the drive shaft doesn't make contact with that. Once we get everything buttoned back up, we'll reinstall that hoop. First up is our factory track bar bolt. We're gonna remove that, and we're gonna keep the hardware. We're gonna reinstall this with our relocation bracket. Our ABS lines, there's one on each side of the axle. Again, we're gonna retain this hardware for use with the relocation bracket. We're also going to be removing the factory bump stops and replacing those with the rough country bump stops, as well as our factory sway bar links. We've got replacements for those as well. This is the factory soft brake lines to the frame. Retain this hardware. These are going to get reinstalled. We're just removing this so the axle can drop down far enough to remove and replace the coils. There it goes. With everything disconnected, we're gonna go ahead and raise the truck up, and that's gonna increase our distance between the frame and the rear end so we can remove our coils. Now, if you're working on the ground, you're gonna lower the rear end with the jack. Same thing's gonna happen, just a little bit different. Okay, now we're gonna install the rough country lifted coil for the rear. I've transferred our isolators top and bottom, and now we're just gonna reinstall. For our track bar relocation bracket, we've got two shims. Our smaller goes on the bottom. We're gonna put those in place. Then we're gonna take the bracket itself, drop it in place. We've got hardware to attach those at the bottom. It's gonna go through our bracket, through our shims, and through a hole that was already in place. And we'll start the bolt. We've got our track bar relocation bracket installed. We've got our shims, our track bar bracket. I've got the shims and the bracket bolted down through the bottom, and we've got our anti-crush sleeve in place. Now we're installing our factory track bar bolt through that. Went ahead and connected a ratchet strap to the bracket and to the frame. Just pulled the axle over and make it easier to line the track bar hole up with the bracket. Now I can just drop the bolt right in. Take our factory hardware, relocation brackets for the ABS lines, get those installed, and we supply hardware to mount the ABS bracket to our relocation bracket. Go ahead and get that set in place and install that as well. This ensures that no undue stress happens to your ABS line from the lift. Let's get these rough country bump stops installed reusing the factory hardware. Let's go ahead and get these extended sway bar links installed. After that, we'll install the M1R rear shocks. We'll reinstall the factory drive shaft loop and get those brake lines reconnected to the frame. And that's going to complete this installation. All right, let's reinstall those soft lines to the frame and install our drive shaft loop. Let's hit these wheels and tires on, get it down off the lift, and see just how good it looks. That's what it takes to install our 3.5-inch M1R kit on the 2025 Toyota Tacoma. And the difference is amazing, both in appearance and performance on and off-road. Not only does it raise the truck 3.5 inches, allowing you to run a taller tire, it's also leveled the truck off, getting rid of that nose-down stance. Up front, our rough country control arms not only look much better than factory, they are also lighter and stronger and have a corrected ball joint angle for years of trouble-free service. Out back, the rough country coil springs not only lift the vehicle, they're also rated specifically for its weight and amount of lift, giving you the best ride on and off-road. If you've got the latest generation Toyota Tacoma and you haven't lifted it yet, what are you waiting for? Get yours today at roughcountry.com.